speak now to Stuart Gietel-Basten, who's an Associate Professor of Social Science and Public Policy at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Stuart, welcome to the programme. How does the world need to prepare for a number of 10 billion living on planet Earth?
Well, it's going to have to make many different changes, and we know what those changes are, that we need to move towards sustainable development, sustainable growth, make our cities more sustainable, and continue our developments and improvements in agriculture and so on. And we have all of those aspects there. We know what we need to do, but the question is whether or not there is the global will to move in that direction. And really, it's no point blaming people, right? It's not necessarily the fault of it's not the fault of population size. It's really more to do with the behavior of people and our own characteristics and our own behavior, but also the institutions in which we inhabit, which can allow us to live more sustainably.
I mean, it's been said for a few years that by the year 2050, I believe this was from the United Nations, in the year 2050, the world in that year will have to produce more food than it's ever produced cumulatively in all the years previously, because of the sheer number of people that are going to be on Earth. So we're talking about resources. How is it going to be possible to sustain a population of 10 billion in the way that the world lives nowadays? And that could cover everything from the climate crisis to biodiversity to natural resources that we humans use.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that we, in terms of the kind of shape of growth over the last 100, 200 years, exactly that argument was being made in the late 18th century by Thomas Malthus, who said that, well, at the pace of growth that we're seeing at the moment, it will be impossible. But people will be dying left, right, and centre from war and famine and pestilence. But then, as it happened, quite soon afterwards, at the end of the 18th and early 19th century, industrial revolution occurred, agricultural revolution changed, and so technology adapted, and of course that responded, and there wasn't in Western Europe that kind of famine and pestilence and disease. So we adapt to this as time goes on. Now, of course, that's not without saying that if there are fewer people, of course, that makes it easier to cope with, right? Because the situation becomes more straightforward. But I think it's a very false assumption to kind of blame areas with rapid population growth for being the burden on this, because of course the place in the world with the most rapid population growth, they're also the places almost always with the lowest carbon footprint. And secondly, to just say, well, let's slow population growth in places where it's very high. I mean, the most effective way of doing that is through urbanization and industrialization. And so then if you industrialize rapidly, then of course you're just changing the nature of the problem, right? You may have fewer people or slower growth, but then may have more carbon emissions per capita because you're industrializing. So everything needs to go together. It's got to be about people and how we behave and our characteristics. But then also, we can't do this alone, right? Governments can't outsource this problem to us. Governments, organizations, big companies, they need to take responsibility for this as well.
Stuart, really, really interesting. Thank you so much indeed. Stuart Gietel-Basten speaking to us from Hong Kong.